hold my hand up. I'm wearing shorts today for like the first time in ages. And it's really
Get your knees out, George, just as we've started recording.
I'm not ashamed of my knees. Right.
Can
you
you
gonna start?
Can you see this?
I can see this.
So, here is our talk on tracking. So, what is the importance of being able to track? Because we're not exactly hunters-gatherers anymore. So, the best reasons to sort of get into tracking and stuff are generally, it's good for research if you're a scientist and wanting to go into research. It's pretty good if you're an artist and you're, well, into art stuff, and you want to try and find maybe a nice area where there's a badger set or whatever. And it's kind of just fun. It's fun wandering around the paths and going, that footprint, I know what that is, or, oh, I wonder who lives here. So that's the importance of it. So we're going to start with IDing footprints. And like any other form of identification, the context of what you're identifying is sort of essential. If you're wandering around in the sheep's field and you see cloven hooves, it could be a deer, or it may be more likely to be a sheep. Knowing where you are in the country is really important to knowing sort of what species are distributed and what species you're likely to be seeing, whether you're more likely to see a rabbit or a hare, or if you're near sort of a walking footpath, whether that footprint is a dog or a fox, and sort of the areas in which you'll find sets and holes. So, we're going to start with foxes. Foxes are pretty characteristically canine. They've got this nice little pad sort of here, and they have this sort of, they have the 4 toes, and you can usually see the claws when you look for a fox print. The major thing that they can be confused for are dogs. So in the middle here, you can see the general difference between a fox print and a dog print. And in the nicest set of terms, foxes are more elegant. They're much smaller than, they tend to be much smaller than dog print. And their sort of 4 toes are pushed together sort of more with an elongated gap between the toes here and the pad. And if you sort of look towards the right of the screen, at the top you can see this is a dog. This is a dog foot, and this here is a fox foot, which kind of gives you an idea of the thing that is doing the print and making it. And you can see how much more elongated the fox is, and it kind of gives you an idea of the scale as well, of how much smaller the fox's print here is compared to the dog's. Moving on. The next quite cool thing is a badger. Badgers are not so canine because they're not canines. They have 5 toes instead of 4, and they've got this really kind of ovular shape to their pad, which is pretty characteristic. Looking back to compare to a dog or a fox, they're much smaller. They're quite thin and sort of triangular even, where compared to this really sort of nice oval shape. The next really distinctive thing, as mentioned before, are the 5 toes. Comparing again back to fox or dogs, they have 4, and the claws are sometimes visible for foxes and dogs. They're almost always visible. Sometimes you can just see what you can see is just 5 claw prints on the mud, and that's it. And you can usually tell from that what you're looking at is a badger. And you can again sort of see this very much here in this lovely foot of a badger. You can see what's making the print: the pad, the elongated pad, the 5 toes, and the claws, the very long claws. Next, we can see rabbits. Rabbits are very, very different to the others. The others are kind of, they're very carnivorous, that you can see their pads, you can see their toes. Rabbits are not like that. They're just sort of a foot. in the best way of putting it. And often you'll see, you tend to see these in sort of more open areas, close to kind of, sort of close to hedges, places where they can dash into to avoid being predated. Another major thing about looking for hare and rabbit footprints is you get this kind of very characteristic stepping pattern. When rabbits move, they put their back feet down first. And if they're being kind of chill about it, they're not scared, they will put a forepaw in front of one foot, in front of their back feet, and then a forepaw in front of that forepaw. So as you can see from the middle picture here. And they'll do this maybe whilst nibbling the grass, and they'll just sort of slowly kind of in an almost rocking motion move. You can see this almost from this picture here. What rabbits can be, rabbits and hares are very similar. Their footprints, their rocking pattern, their same sort of movement pattern is similar. So this is sort of going back to the context is a major thing for identifying these, because the hare is a lot bigger than a rabbit. Hares tend to be round size, maybe a larger cat, compared to the rabbit, which is more like Chihuahua sized, in the best way of putting it, and their feet scale with them. So if you see what looks to be a relatively small footprint that looks rabbity, and in an area where you know rabbits tend to be, that's likely going to be a rabbit. Whereas hares tend to be more in an open environment. If you know there are hares around the area, there is the potential for it being a hare. Moving on. Talking about animals that can be easily mistaken for one another, we get to our deer. And we're going to run through sort of the most common ones around the area. But what I have here is not a distinctive list of the deer species in the UK. In the UK, on top of the roe, fallow, and muntjac and red, you also get sika deer and Chinese water deer. The major thing sort of that's worth noting is that muntjac deer, sika deer, and Chinese water deer are not native species. They have escaped from somewhere and have just been a bit invasive. So sika deer and Chinese water deer tend to be jump through some things. Here we go. Sika deer and Chinese water deer tend to be concentrated in certain areas where they've escaped from, compared to your other species. These being the roe deer, the fallow deer, and the roe deer, the red deer even, are the most sort of are native to the UK, with the fallow and roe being most commonly, most sort of widely spread, and muntjac deer, even though it's an escapee, it's also fairly widely spread. Anyway, my little ramble about deer distribution. So we're going to start with red deer. Red deer are the largest of the deer in the UK. They, as you can see from this sort of lovely little set of drawings, they are quite a lot larger than your fallow or even just a sheep's print. So they tend to be around maybe 8 to 9 centimeters when fully grown. And they have this, sometimes you'll see just the cloven hooves here. And other times you will see also these tiny little bits at the end. And the major distinguisher between red deer and some of the others, other than just the size, is distribution. If you're in sort of round, for example, where I am, Oxfordshire, you're very unlikely to see a red deer. Whereas red deer tend to be more more sort of localised to around Scotland, the Highlands. I think there are a few around Cornwall as well. So your major distinguisher for a red deer is the size. And here's a nice picture of a red deer. They're big and elegant. Now we're going to move to roe deer. Roe deer are far smaller than a red deer, with their hoof prints being around maybe 4 to 5 centimeters. They are often sort of pointed, quite pointed at the tips and sort of widen out around the ends. Sort of compared to maybe what you'd see with a red deer, where it's much more kind of not kind of similar around all the way across. Roe deer are a lot sort of have a sharper sort of curve. As well as this, roe deer tend to have their footprints being more spread out, as you can see sort of around here. Next, we find ourselves at our fallow deer. Now, fallow deer are sort of more sort of in between a roe deer and a red deer, with their hooves being around 4 to 8 centimeters, with the females being at the lower end of that scale and the males being further in the size, with seeing sexual dimorphism between these deer. Unlike the roe deer, which they could be confused for, the roe deer tend to be more spread out, whereas the cleaves on the fallow deer are almost parallel. And this picture here, this identification picture here, is really nicely demonstrates this. Then we can move on to our muntjac deer. Muntjac deer are tiny. They are the smallest out of the ones we've just looked at, with their hoof prints being about 2 centimeters long. They also have this really interesting sort of curve where the outer cleave here curves around the inner one, and you can see it on this like footprint here. You can see the inner footprint, the inner cleave here at the foot being having the outer one curve around it, and it's quite a distinctive marker of muntjac deer, as well as its size. And here's a nice photo of the muntjac. And yet again, looking back at the distributions, you can see and make note of whereabouts you're likely to see what you're seeing, and you can usually make a good and rather accurate guess at what deer you're seeing. Next, we're moving to otters, just because they're fun. Otters have a very similar sort of print to stoats and weasels, even if we're not covering them. They've got these claws, and they're kind of this. You've got these like four footprints and this like nice, almost circular pad. Lynx and stoats are similar. However, otters are webbed. You can see the sort of webbing from these footprints. And they're also a lot bigger, with otters having footprints around 6 to 9 centimeters compared to the lynx, weasels and stoats being around 4 centimeters. Another really nice distinctive thing for otters is you can see this tail print being dragged along in the snow, and you can see that in mud as well. Moving on, we can go and talk about burrows and holes. Going back to location context, they are really essential to what you're looking at, and determining where is it, what size is it, where in the country are you, what am I likely to be seeing. We can start at badger sets, with badger sets being really quite easy to spot. They're around 20 to 30 centimeters in diameter, and they're quite messy, because badgers like to just toss up a load of rubble out of their sets. You can usually tell a badger set because there tend to be a lot of holes around sort of the area, about the same size. Some of them will be less used, so you can tell the less used ones because they will have bits of leaf and earth that have just sort of fallen back into the hole. whereas the more active ones have sort of very fresh mud or soil around the outside, and you can see the holes are pretty clean because the way badgers go to approach escaping from their holes, they leave this dragging underbelly. Another fairly good identification for badger trails is they have these runs. Because they're quite low to the ground, they leave this flattening of the grass in straight lines, usually from their set across the field. As well as that, you can find badger latrines near their sets. Fox dens are a lot cleaner, and I find them actually quite hard to distinguish. They tend to be a circular hole, and they also tend to be a lot smaller. Best way of identifying a fox den is around April to June. You get remains of their food being left outside because they don't like keeping their rubbish inside. Rabbit burrows are fairly easy. They are around 10 to 15 centimeters, so not hard to, quite easy to distinguish them between a rabbit and a badger set. Rabbits tend to leave outside their burrows rabbit droppings, which are good indicators. And around the area, you might find grass that has been nibbled, and also rabbits. You quite often find rabbits close to their warrens in order to make a quick dash in case something attempts to eat them. Finally, small mammals. This is something that I find really tricky, so you're probably better off potentially doing a bit more research, but a small sort of lowdown. Mice holes tend to be about 3 centimeters. So do voles and bank voles. So do voles and shrews. They tend to have their so wood mice tend to have their burrows out in open areas, and quite often you find debris and sticks falling into and around the holes because of where the hole's positioned. Some you might find the hole sort of in the woods, which would lead to more debris being in those holes. And the sort of the easiest to distinguish out of small mammals would be rat holes, which are 6 centimeters, around 6 centimeters, despite them being able to get into gaps that are about 2 centimeters. They like a nice kind of entranceway to their homes. Anyway, passing on to George.
Right, poop. Poop is good because basically, like, with footprints, you kind of need like perfect conditions. You need different like kind of levels of mud or anything, and like burrow is just hard to find. But poop will stay, and you can tell how long ago the animal's been there because it'll be fresh. If you find poop, the animal's been there, and all animals poop except for those 3. I found out, which is pretty cool. Yeah, so tardigrades, jellyfish, and face mites don't poop, and thank God for that. Right, change slide. Hedgehog poop. It's kind of black or really dark brown. It's like little sausage fingers. It's about 1.5 to 5 centimeters. I don't know if it's about the length of my nose. Is a good kind of indicator. And you'll find bits of insect on them. Oh, you can't see my mouse, can you? So that bottom left one, you can see like a little wing in there. That's a oh, I can change it myself. Oh no, I can't. Never mind. Yeah,
I can do
that's a good way. You can see this finger here. There's all that, and then just look for the insects. Look for the size. It's kind of all these are quite distinct in a way. That kind of you can kind of tell. And also, yeah, putting these together, I realized it was ugly. Like the slides just looked awful, and they were covered in poop. So I decided to break it up a little bit with some raccoons. So I hope you all enjoy. Right, rabbit poop. It's just little balls. Hold on, I forget I have my notes. They're kind of yellowy brown, kind of green, and like we've all seen rabbit poo. We all know what it looks like. It's kind of grainy, kind of dry, and there are 2 types. So rabbits are hindgut fermenters, so they'll eat their food, it'll go past their stomach, and then after their stomach, it'll be digestively fermented. I think kind of like that, yeah. Digested and fermented, and they poop it out, but it hasn't been to their stomach, so it's fermented after the stomach. So then they poop out a soft poo that has been processed. That's the word. And then just eat it again, and then they can digest it in the stomach, and then they poop out hard poop. So 2 types. There you go. Little change. Why you have a look at the? Go back a sec. Okay. Move forward. Hair poop is slightly bigger, and it's flatter. And it's kind of got this lighter color. So it's basically just, it's basically the same, just a little bit bigger and flatter. And that's kind of all there is to that. There we go. Wait for the. Should be
It's
a
like
photo. There we go.
Forbidden Nesquik.
Huh?
It's like Forbidden Nesquik.
Yeah, exactly. It makes me hungry. I don't know. So yeah, you can see the two of them together. And then deer poo is also, again, very similar. They all look pretty much the same. These little ones all look the same. There's some different ones further down the line. Don't worry about that. Thank you, Seth, for your contribution. It's very appreciated. And yeah, you find them in little clumps. I'm pretty sure I found them at the top of the field behind my house where we don't have deer. So I'm a little confused. But who knows? Maybe apparently muntjac are making their way over here to where I am. So maybe there's muntjac near me. I'm gonna go find them. But yeah, they're more like kidney beans than the other two. So while rabbit and hare poop are more round, these are more like beans. Yeah. So there's the hare and rabbit. There's the deer poop. All right. Now, what's next? Otter poo is a lovely one. It's kind of dark and rough. It contains the hedgehog poop contained all the insects and everything. This will contain like little bits of fish, like bones and crayfish and all that kind of exoskeleton kind of stuff. They're kind of 3 to 11 centimeters, so like 2 of my nose, I think, roughly about that. But they'll be near water, near where like you would find otters, and like kind of grass mountains. So you can see that top left picture there. That's kind of the area you'd find otters. But yeah, there are 2 types of poop for these ones as well. One is the whole digestion poop with all the waste, and the other is like they're called sprints, which are kind of territorial, and they're a lot more slimy and dark. And they smell like jasmine tea apparently. I don't have a sense of smell, really, but apparently other people think that they smell like jasmine tea, so that's nice. Yeah, and the next one is mink poo, which is just awful to look at. It's kind of reedy. It looks like the stuff that would get like when you'd cycle across like leaves in the autumn, and it'll get caught up in your wheels, and it was kind of just made you want to vomit on the spot. That's kind of what it looks like, and it's just kind of it contains more mammal bird prey in it, so like kind of fur and feathers and bones, and they're kind of pointy at the end. And these ones are really stinky. They don't smell quite as nice as jasmine, but they're really stinky. Apparently, I can't smell things. But yeah, okay. Next one. Water vole poo. They poop in latrines next to the water, which is kind of cute. They're awful to look at. They're a lot more slimy and bean-like. So like the deer poo.
They look like Tic Tacs.
Yeah, they're just. I hate it. I don't enjoy looking at it. But if you see it, there's water voles nearby. So they're quite distinctive. And the next slide, I decided to give you a very nice close-up of. So can we? I would like for all of you to stare at it. No, go back. I would like you all to stare at it for 10 seconds.
And now we're going to the raccoons.
That was 5 seconds. Okay, fine. Rat poo is larger than water vole droppings, but it's still very, very small. So they kind of flat at one end, pointy at the other. Slimy and soft to the touch, like Seb. They smell like urine. But there's like no good pictures of these online, except from kind of pest control kind of things. And again, it's the kind of thing where like the pictures that you find are the kind of pictures like it's in a dark canopy, like a dark space. Someone's got their phone with a flash camera. So it's just awful to look at. But you can kind of see there it's that kind of thing. And then if we move on to the next one, mouse poo is the same but slightly smaller. Which is all I can say for that. And there are no pictures of this online. It's really weird. I guess I just didn't really look very hard. But that was the only picture I could find. But actually, wait, no, there is a better picture. You go to the next slide. There we go. All compared to rice droppings. Not rice droppings. Just normal rice. Yeah, so you can see the mouse is smaller and the rat is bigger. And then if we change to the next slide, and then the next slide, bat poo. They poop where they sleep. So, I mean, I imagine it probably has a little bit of force behind it, otherwise it would just dribble down them. But I mean, bats are pretty grubby. That's probably why they have so many diseases on them. So it's often stuck to walls or the ground beneath tree holes. And I have they poop in caves. And I went to Thailand once, and there were these cool caves, and I was with my friend. I was like, "Hey, let's climb in these caves." And I got my hands all over the floor. I was like, "What's this slimy stuff?" But yeah, anyway, they're filled with bits of insect too. They kind of vary between the species. They got a kind of rough kind of appearance. But you can see here they're just all in one place at the bottom of a thing. They're kind of cute as well. They can be used to track climate change. So like the caves I was talking about. Nothing goes in there. Nothing cleans out the caves. It's just layers and layers over like all this time, and you can just see what the bat's eating, what the temperature is. You can see like how it changes. So that's cool, and that's a link to the paper that's talking about how they can be used to track climate change. Yeah. Next one.
We can put the link up in the chat after this.
Yes, I'll do that. Fox poo is about 6 to 8 centimeters, so about 1.5 of my nose. They're kind of long. They've got that pointy end is the important bit. So because they meet.
Twist.
Yeah, I'm not sure what exactly it is about them eating meat, but you find it in carnivores where the end of food. That's why the mink had a pointed end as well. That's kind of like the most distinctive one. That's how you tell it from dog poo. But urban foxes are more like dog poo because they're eating like trash and all that kind of.
Yeah,
No,
it's
that's
also
so
important
dope.
that they're omnivores, isn't it? Because you can have meat and like berry,
Yeah.
fruity
Well,
stuff in there.
if you go back a slide, you
Mhm.
can see in the top picture there's blackberries in there, so you can kind of all these you can kind of see what they're eating as well. But you'll find bits of bones and berries and traces of fur and all that kind of stuff. And it has a very foxy, musky smell.
Characteristic
as well.
that dogs
This is
like
nice.
as well.
Close up. Ignore the big stock watermark. That's okay. I'm not going to pay for these. All right, next one. Badger poo. These are lovely little fellas. They are so neat. They're such good little beasts. They dig holes, dig little latrines, and they're like square. It's really nice, and it's kind of like the actual poop inside is highly variable, and you can tell what they've been eating. So if they've been eating worms and berries, it'll be all kind of like long and dark and sloppy. But if they've been eating carrion and kind of more meaty stuff, it'll be smaller and firmer. And they have a lovely smell, lovely sweet musky smell. And the cool thing about these, Rosie mentioned it earlier. I can't remember if you did actually mention it, but they mark the edge of the territory, so you can tell where the edge is. So if you find the set, around it will be the latrines.
Or if you're looking for a set, you might just find the latrine and know, well, it's about 10 paces that way.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, that's good.
Well, not necessarily exactly that, but they tend to be quite close to their set.
All right. Yeah, no, they're good. They're really, and it's a really good way of finding badgers and knowing if they're active, because you can find like the poop is inside, like in the latrines. Like I know there's badgers behind my house, and I know they're active now because I've been up and I've been like, hey, there's the latrines. This is what I've been looking at. So yeah, no, they're really good.
Also, I believe there's a new technique that they're using to track TB across the country by looking at their poo instead of in their.
There was a woman who was doing that as an internship. I forgot what she was called. We nearly did it last year, George. Remember, it got cancelled because of
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that was a shame.
thingy.
That was looking to be really fun.
And
Owl pellets are not poop, but I figured it would be rude not to include them. So basically, they eat a mouse whole, and then their stomach is all like churny, and then it can't digest the bones, so it puts them in a ball and vomits it up. So you can see here, it's quite a big thing. You get the owl pellets, you kind of dissect it, see what's inside, see what it's been eating, and they'll dry out. I keep forgetting I have notes.
would this put us on to Anna? Would you be willing to talk now or about our pellet?
Yeah, sure. I'll talk for a bit.
So, Anna,
Cool.
you've done some work with our pellets, haven't you?
I've done a little bit. It was for a project. I did a bit of live trapping with Longworth traps, as well as some owl pellet dissection to look at small mammal populations. But yeah, as you said, so as tracks, one sign left behind by birds are owl pellets, which show you that there's the presence of the bird, but also the presence of the bird's prey, if it's a carnivore. But herbivores also do produce pellets. And so yeah, so this is a brief kind of overview of pellets, because I'd really hoping to, when I get back onto campus, bring some pellets down with me, and then maybe get people to collect them on campus or something, and then we can go and try and dissect them in detail and try and ID stuff. But yeah, so broadly, it's different species of birds produce pellets. So kestrels produce pellets, which are like, I don't know whether you can see this, they're like the small that one there. It's like a kind of little tapered. It's
Well,
quite
the next slide
circular.
has next slide has some. I
Oh,
think it's
great.
Sammy Ray, woo.
Hey.
It's not present
Yeah,
from the beginning. There we go.
Cool. Oh yeah, thanks. That's good. Cool. Yeah, so the kestrel ones are kind of smaller and more circular and tapered to the end, and they're quite grey and furry in colour. Yeah, and then you've got corvid pellets as well. So like crows, which have bits of grass in them, and then like gulls also producing pellets, which could have fish bones in them. And then obviously you've got the owls as well, which produce pellets. So as birds of prey, they produce pellets with bones in them. And just briefly, this is my barn owl. I use them for outreach sessions.
What?
Try and have a look.
Yeah, so barn owls produce pellets, and they're quite easy to identify compared to other owls, because barn owls can nest in like a particular spot.
I think you're showing the wrong screen.
Mounds. Is that Rosie's screen? Yeah.
Yeah. Am I showing?
You're sharing us.
That's the aim. That was the aim.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
but yeah, so barn owl pellets are quite easy to find if you're lucky enough to find them, because you can find them in their nest sites where they're in like mounds. So you can get mounds of pellets just piled on top of each other, and also at their kind of roost sites, if it's a regular roost where they found like a fence post or a particular tree where they stick up pellets in that spot. And then also, so another way, a clue to find out that it's a barn owl pellet is that you can often find like feathers as well as where the pellets are, if it's something like a nest where they've been like pruning and things like that. So can you see those feathers, yep. Barn owl feathers? So they can be like around where the pellets are, and that can help you identify them as barn owl pellets. And so the pellets themselves, I've got a couple, they're, compared to other pellets, they're quite big, they're larger pellets, and they're quite like dark in colour, like blacky grey, and they're like smoother and more circular, but some can be longer and some can be like shorter. But yeah, so that's the barn owl pellet. And so like you were saying, the pellets are regurgitated remains of indigestible prey items, so like the furry matrix in the pellets, and also the bones, so like the skulls and the jaws, and you can they swallow the prey whole, so you get these whole skeletons of mammals, small mammals in the pellets, soft, yeah, so the soft parts, like you said, the soft parts are digested in the like proventricular, so like the first stomach, and then the pellets are condensed and made in the gizzard, and then they sick that back up because it's undigestible, stuff that they don't want, so the fur and the bones. And yeah, so they can eat, barn owls can eat about 3 to 4 small mammals in a night, and they might produce a pellet or two once every day. And yeah, so when you dissecting the pellets, that's the fun bit, because you can identify what species you found. So you can make like whole skeletons up, because they eat them whole and they stick them up whole. So like, if you can see that, that's wrong way.
There we go.
There we go. But yeah, so you can find like limb bones and ribs and vertebra and ear ossicles and things like that, to make up a skeleton. And then the bit where you can identify the small mammal species is primarily from the skull, so the difference in the skull sizes, but also the jaws. So the jaws are a good way to identify. So with shrews, for example, you can have the jaws with the teeth with the red tips on them, quite distinctive compared to other small mammals. And then mice and voles, mice have teeth that are more like molars, so like our molars that we have, and then voles have more zigzaggy, kind of ridged teeth. And then in those species, mice and voles, you can distinguish the species of mice and vole by looking at the root sockets, so ripping out the teeth and using like a hand lens or a microscope to look at how many holes there are and the arrangement of those root sockets, which is a good way to distinguish between species. And yeah, so you can see quite a few different species of small mammals when you're dissecting owl pellets. So when I dissected the barn owl pellets that I had, I found pygmy shrews, so smaller than common shrews, and also common shrews as well. I found some, and then wood mice and yellow-necked mice, and then field voles and bank voles, and also a brown rat, which was a bit bigger than the rest. So quite a chunky skull. And yeah, so like Rosie said at the beginning, it kind of depends on your location and habitat where you're looking. Depends what species you might find. So you might find house mice in a built environment, and you then might find dormice in specific localized areas. So you might find the hazel dormouse, or edible dormice, you know, the gliss, which is more up where I am, like Bedfordshire, Hertfordshire area. And then you also might find things like harvest mice, and then water voles and water shrews, which are like the bigger skulls of the voles and the shrews. Yeah, and you also might find moles and odd things like that. They might be rarer to find and less common, and bits and bobs of things like amphibians, like a foot of a frog or a toad, and then like insect parts. So you might find in little owls, I think they often have wings of beetles, because they often eat beetles and insects. So yeah, I can find all sorts of stuff and loads of different pellets. And hopefully when we can get back out doing things more practical, we can do some dissections, because that's fun. That's the fun bit. So yeah, that's a pretty brief overview of pellets and ID as tracks. Yeah.
Nice. Thank you very much. There's one last slide, and then.
Ooh. Oh yeah, nice picture.
Yeah. So, is anything else to add to that, George?
Yeah, I think that's all. That's an owl vomiting up a pellet. That's a raccoon.
There's a raccoon.
I think it is anyway. I could be wrong.
It looks like a raccoon. It could be a badger, but definitely a raccoon.
But yes, no. Anyway, yeah, that was good. All right. I think we're done. Unless do you have any questions? Oh, I'm glad you loved the
kind of last year we had a similar thing because we did a talk last year, and I got it explained to me and then instantly forgot again. But a lot of the carnivores, their poo is like really black. I'm wondering why is it darker when they're carnivores?
It's definitely something to do with the meat.
Yeah.
I think it's. Oh wait, no, hold on.
Oh.
No, I do know this. I think it's to do with their short digestive system, so they have less time to get all the stuff out. So with because it's meat, it's more likely to have diseases and stuff. So you'll find like hyenas and lions and stuff. They have really short digestive systems compared to herbivores and stuff. Because they want to just get all they can out of it and then poop that straight away. So I think that's part of the reason why it's darker. But it might also just be what the contents of it. It's more meaty.
Any other questions?
Emily's asked, she's found a red pellet full of crabs and shellfish on the coast. What could have done that?
Yeah, that sounds interesting. It's probably maybe some type of gull, maybe a gull species. Crabs and shellfish. That sounds pretty cool. Whereabouts did you find it? On the beach or That's interesting. I haven't seen a gull pellet before, but I suppose bits of you can also ID like fish vertebra and things like that to identify the fish species that they might have eaten. Cool.
I'm in Worthing at the moment. That's where I found it.
Right, okay.
Right. And I thought it might have been a crow, because you see the crows obviously doing things, but a gull would be really cool. I still have it. I take some photos.
Oh, great. Yeah, you might, if you have a look at, there's a couple of good websites. So obviously the RSPB and the Mammal Society and the FSC guides as well are good for owl pellet ID. I'm sure you'll be able to find some information on that. That's interesting. Cool.
Nice, thanks.
Anything else? Anyone else got some?
I thought maybe it's worth mentioning here, but next week is the SU's Sustainability Week, and we're taking part on it. We're doing a quiz next Thursday.
Which I've done my questions.
And George's Croc Talk is also next Friday. It's not technically part of it, but we'll be working
it'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Anna, do you want to say a bit more about it?
Sure, yeah. So the FX Plus and SU have made next week with loads of events and talks all about sustainability. So they've got different days for different sustainability topics. And then Thursday is the Biodiversity and Conservation Day. So that's when you've got the Ecosoc talk. And then, throughout the week as well, I think they'll be sending out emails. I think they might have just sent out one with the events. But throughout the week, we're running a backyard bio blitz. So you can just go out to your garden or on your daily walk and basically just take a picture of anything and everything you find, and then we'll try and ID it and just see what everyone's found, because obviously they don't know whether the on-campus bio blitz is going to be able to happen this year, but it'd be good to kind of get out and see what people can find.
Yeah, should be good. Please join in.
We can't hear you, Rosie.
No, we can't hear you, Rosie. You just died. I heard that though.
Is anyone here who isn't a member of the committee, is everyone aware of our new Discord, and is everyone who's on Discord on it?
I will post the link in here, but it's on our Facebook pin to the top at the moment.
Quite a few people in there now.
Yeah.
We need meme content.
Yeah, we're sharing most of the. If we're watching a TV program or something, we watched Prehistoric Park in there the other day.
Yeah, it's better for streaming in it. It's just better in general.
Yeah, it's really nifty.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other questions that you want to fire at us? Or anything else? Any fun things to mention about wildlife? Other than the fact I'm now sitting in the dark.
I know, I'm illuminated by my screens. And
hopefully the talk was useful and didn't tell you a lot of stuff that you already knew.
Yeah, but you'll go out and...
The context does make it a lot more important. I remember, isn't there something about badgers when they're because they hunt or something, they take chunks out of stuff with their claws.
They make scrapings.
Yeah.
Sort of round their sets. You often get sort of these points where they've almost looks like where a rabbit might have dug, but they're bigger and you can see the claw prints quite often in it. And it can also be, I think, picking up roots and stuff and eating roots and stuff.
Mm.
We have
Ooh.
something grim.
Absolutely.
Oh, can you
We're
post the
happy
paper
to
in
try and
the?
ID something that's grim. I guess, yeah. If
Oh yeah, no, yeah, I'll
Yeah,
post
you
that
post the
now.
paper in the Teams chat.
One more
Yeah.
thing I do want to say about tracking though is that it's just like go out and do it, and try it, and take photos of all the prints and poop and burrows you find. Post them to the chat and everything.
absolutely.
Just
the more you
just get
practice,
experience. I've started.
yeah.
I've been looking for all winter because there's been no animals around me, so I was like, I got to do something, and I've started seeing like all these really cool stuff. I found muntjac prints where I didn't even know we had deer, apparently. So it's just like, yeah, just do it and see what you can find.
Absolutely. It's and don't, like, if you get something wrong, don't worry about it. Like if you mistake a fox for a dog, it doesn't matter. Just once you get those basic, like, just trying to get the basics is good. And there's a lot of like really good resources online. There's stuff like the wildlife trust and things like National Trust have loads of great things. And also, if you're looking for deer, somehow all the hunting websites have the best resources.
Yeah.
It
was the same for
deer.
spiders. All the best resources for the spider talk were extermination websites.
Yeah, it's always kind of
pest
out of
control.
spite you look from them.
Turn the light on, because otherwise I'm sitting in the dark.
George, can you dig out that paper?
I've sent it to the thing. I sent it to Messenger. I can send it here.
Yeah, you put it in this.
Put it in the chat here, in case they don't have Facebook.
With deer, which are most likely to visit farmland? Because my uncle's a farm, and I took the shortcut route home, which is across a bunch of his fields. And I came across, I didn't realise they were in the field, but two little deer. I think they're either roe deer or fallow deer.
Whereabouts in the country are you?
Nottingham.
I think it could almost be either. Did you get a good look at their backs? Because fallow deer.
Fallow deer have patterns, because I've seen them at Willerton Park. These ones, I didn't see any patterns. They weren't there for long. I didn't realise they were in the grass, and they just kind of zoomed through a little hedge.
Were they sort of like brown zooming?
Yeah, like light brown zoomings.
How big were they? Like, sort of. I'm trying to think of the best way to sizing put it. It sounds like you've got roe deer. They tend to be a bit on the smaller side, not too small, definitely deer size, not looking like a pig or anything. But yeah, and often they're just entirely brown. They don't have any of the like Bambi sort of spottings, which is what fallow deer have, which are pretty distinctive. And if you're not in, say, Scotland, then they're not going to be red deer. And muntjac are much more. They look like pigs. My mum, when they cross the road, my mum says they look like pigs. They look like pigs. They really do. And yeah, and you're unlikely to see Seeker or Chinese water deer in your area, so probably roe deer.
I mean, apparently we've had red deer before, because sometimes they manage to escape from the from Willerton onto the fields.
Well, there is. If you go to the map, there's a just tiny little splodge over Nottingham.
That's it.
Yeah.
They're really they're strangely people friendly, but people always go up and try and touch them. And I went at Christmas. It literally says on a massive sign, 50-meter distance. And this woman went up and she nearly got shanked.
That sign can't stop them because they can't read. Sorry. There's
good.
Also something that I thought was really cool is, so roe deer's like antlers are quite, so red deer are like fingers, they're kind of branching out, and then roe deer are kind of like pointed, sort of 3 or 4 sort of spikes at the top, whereas fallow deer have these antlers which are kind of what you'd imagine for an elegant deer. So they sort of like elk-like antlers where they're kind of fuzzy, which is really cool. They're fuzzy, and they're kind of, instead of having fingered sort of things, they're kind of like webbed almost.
Like meese.
Yeah, like meese. I can sort of copy and paste a picture of a fallow deer, just so you can, like, because it's good to get an eye on.
Should we post the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Thing? because the actual PowerPoint has all my notes.
I will share.
If I get a picture of them,
Wait, let me share it because I got the one with the notes.
You do it then. What were you saying, sorry?
If I manage to get a picture of them again, I will. Well, I didn't get a picture of them the first time, but you know what I mean. If I manage to get a photo of them, I will send them to you guys.
Yeah, awesome. But it definitely does sound sort of roe deer-y.
There was just 2 of them by themselves. There wasn't any. Neither of them had antlers, and I didn't see any patterns. It was just kind of a brown blur.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you see a white rump? Like their bums?
Little tails.
Yeah.
With the bums.
Because roe deer kind of have these little white bums. I don't know if you can see the photos that I'm sending into the chat because my chat's just frozen and died.
Yeah, I can see bat poop and the picture of the deer.
Right, no, I'll try and send the other one. Why is my picture too large to be sent, you bastard?
Just screen share it. It's probably easier.
That's a shout, I can do that. Yes.
That's why he's president.
That's why he's president.
It's all the good ideas.
Very smart idea. Screen share it. So yeah, this is what a roe deer kind of looks like, and you've got this when they run away, you can just see their bums flicking this white kind of color. But yeah, and this is the antler thing that
Dazzles you as they run away.
Which is really cool.
Kind of velvety.
Yeah, sort of. You can see they're just slightly fuzzy, which is really cool.
Floof. Did you guys have Sylvanian families? That's the vibes they give off.
Absolutely, they do, don't they? Yeah. Well, I hope you enjoyed the talks.
Well,
people.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thank
Awesome.
you very much.
Yeah. Well, we'll see you guys. Remember, quiz next Thursday and Croc Talk next Friday at 5
See you
o'clock.
next week.
Go to the Croc Talk. It'll be fun.
It will.
It's been 3 months in the making.
And hopefully the follow-up to this talk would be the camera trapping talk that I need to write.
I mean, once we get back to Falmouth, we'll do some proper. We'll go out and find stuff. But yeah. Anyway,
Awesome.
hope you had a good time. I know I did, and see you guys next week.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm recording.
Bye.
How do we end the
Cool.
recording?
See ya.